Good morning, everyone. My name is Harry Chapman, and I'm the Content Director for DTX. Thanks very much for joining us here today for the fifth in our series of our DTX Talks. Today, we're going to be looking at the quite important subject of tech agility, which I think for many businesses has been quite critical over the past 4 to 5 months. And I'm really pleased to be joined here today by a real expert on this topic. We've got Gavin Barton here. He's the CTO of Booking.com Transport. Gavin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to everyone on the live stream.
Gavin, I think the past 4 or 5 months have been quite challenging for a lot of businesses, and I must say I'm a loyal customer of Booking.com. In fact, I booked my holiday through them that I'm having next week. And as I was doing that, I was thinking, it must have been a strange time to be in the online bookings business, much like it has been to be in exhibitions almost. What's the one thing you personally learned from this period, I guess, when it comes to agility and flexibility?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge change for everyone. I think nobody could have really predicted this. And for me, our entire business has moved to remote working, and it's been a fantastic, seeing the entire business shift there. And I think for me, the personal bit is the whole piece about making time for the family. So I have a daughter, and lots of people out there with families and kids and stuff trying to work around these new circumstances we're in, and just being just find that time to sort of be flexible around your well-being and things has been a really, really different experience for us. But actually, it's been really great, and for me, it's just that whole balancing of that work life, not being on the calls too much, and so forth. It's been really good.
Avoiding video fatigue and perhaps introducing your daughter to the team from time to time makes it a bit more human, doesn't it?
Yeah, she loves Zoom bombing and all those kind of things, as many people see. So yeah, it's been quite good. She's want to be in the conversation.
Part of the team, a new team member. Well, I'm going to hand over to you, Gavin, just for your 15 minutes of remarks on this quite important topic. For those who are listening, please do submit your questions as we go through. We will have about 10 to 15 minutes to answer as many of those as we can at the end. So Gavin, over to you.
Cool, thank you. So I'm Booking.com Transport. I've been in the business about 5 years, and over those 5 years, we've gone through a real journey in terms of embedding Agile and an evolution, should we say. And I don't really like transformation. I like evolution because Agile is around iterative and incremental change over time. And before that, I was at the BBC. So I've got a lot of experience in terms of embedding Agile. And I think a good starting point for me is really on what is agility, because I'm sure many of you will have a different perspective on what agility is. But what it means for me is the ability to course correct your plan in a reasonably short period of time without destabilizing your business. It's not chaotic, right? It's not unstructured. It's purposeful and meaningful, and that's interesting, because a lot of people will see that as not really agile, but it is really around changing your business in a very structured way. And the time horizon for agility depends on different things that you're doing. So for example, in transport, we do a lot of experimentation on the website. So the time horizon for changing and course correcting there might be hours, days, or even up to maybe a week or two as we get insight from the customer. But then agility more at the macro might be on your month, quarterly, annual, or 3-year plans, depends on. So I think there's different sort of lenses you put on agility. And then when as you embed Agile into a business, there's a few things that you should be aware of, and I think around health warnings. One is you can't copy culture. So I see many businesses try to copy Spotify model and wholesale put it into the business, and it doesn't work. You've got to tailor it for your business, right? And then other businesses will have tried to do a wholesale, putting the process in and being really very process centric. Right? Agile as a way really sort of has a preference on people over process. So again, thinking around how do you find that balance really, and change takes time. Right, so some people don't recognize that actually it takes time for people to learn and adapt, because we're all humans, and it does take time to bed in, and constant change though can be really, really tiring. And the final sort of health warning is, people really try to get to this process place where actually the real goal is delivering outcomes, products, working software as early as possible to your customers, whether internal or external customers. And in my experience, right, that, many businesses, it might have been the right thing to do Agile, but they may have failed to adopt it because of a few things. One is it could be just not the right time for the business. Businesses need to be hungry and have the appetite to shift to a more Agile culture. Right? As I've said before, doing too much change at once is also a bit of a challenge. But you also need the foundations in place as well, whether it's some org design pieces, but you really need to think around broader than just the process, around some of the cultural side of things, because it does take time to embed into the business. And from my perspective, there's a load of ingredients that are needed to make agility work. And this is just my perspective, but the things that you need to nurture and enable agility really sort of flex depending on the sector, the business you work in, and the culture you want to lean towards. And leaning is important because you want to lean into it and really embrace it. So in our business, we have a real strong focus on the customer. So that means that we look at the outcomes that we're trying to achieve for the customer rather than the metrics. If you're all about the metrics, that's it's one lens, but it really doesn't necessarily get you to the outcomes you're trying to do and deliver for the customers. Fast decision making is really, really important in agility. So you can move forward. Right? Your agility should be data driven or insight driven. It shouldn't be random. Right? Smaller units are better than larger units, the smaller, faster units. So in transport, we have smaller teams that we have operating in specific domains of responsibility. And I'll talk a bit more about domains shortly. And there needs to be a real core stability in your business as well. So being agile, constant change and flux, right, will lead to instability over time. So you need to be able to balance the amount of stability you have in your business. Trust is very, very important. So trust and collaboration. And if you look at some of the models out there, trust is the number one thing to build, right, a real strong team, followed by things like communication and so forth. And then the final sort of ingredient for me is around devolution. Devolution is good, right, because what you allow teams to do is have autonomy over decision making and purpose and so forth. So a lot of that is quite theoretical in many respects, but there's some of the sort of my perspectives on it. Just to bring some real sort of examples to it now in terms of what we've done in transport. So the first things that we did when we were adopting and embedding Agile into our business was to give us some air cover. So when I first came into the business, we had some challenges around sort of platform stability, some sort of things around org design and things. So got some of the housekeeping and things in place really there to give us the air cover, because the challenge is when you go through any transformation or evolution is that you need to have sort of the trust and the buy-in, and if you've got lots of different things hitting you from different angles, it's very, very hard to move forward. We had a multi-year plan, so we had sort of 3 pillars around this. The first is around our people, the second is around the ways of working, and the third area is around the products, systems, sort of technology capabilities that you're delivering. And if you think about a Venn diagram, right, of any business, you mix together your people, how you work as an organization and what you deliver. Having those things working together and interoperating is really, really key. And when they're all sort of working in harmony, then you can really get a good level of purpose and agility through your business. So from a people perspective, the things that we've done a lot is to try and attract and retain great people through building up things like the community programs. We do a lot of things like talks, right? And I know we can't do so many now, but we've had sort of events, working with sort of different outreach programs and things. And we've got apprenticeships, graduates, various different things to really bring people into the business. We've also done a lot of work in the business to change the tone on how you grow and develop people. So, making time for development, having sort of cross-skilling and so forth. So, trying to create that environment where people can be really curious, because a key part about being, agile in your business is that curiosity around, what the customer needs, how your business operates, how you can optimize the process and so forth. And in doing all this, we really sort of focus on building a trust and empowerment into the organization, because when you get into a point of trust and empowerment, teams can really operate with that sort of level of speed and agility, and also at the same time letting people fail. So in our business, we allow people, to fail, and it's fine to fail. It's not a problem. The key thing is to learn from your mistakes and iterate, and it's a real key tenet of being agile. The next area, sort of key pillar around ways of working, is probably one of the most important, because this sets the real culture and tone about your agility in the business. But for us, we've adopted this concept of what we call domain-based teams, which is teams that are grouped around a specific problem or domain. So for example, it might be search, or there might be some pricing or some parts of our mobile app and so forth. But we've grouped teams, cross-functional teams who are sort of reasonably small, so probably about 8 people into that area. And then we've grouped things into what we call product groups and product families. And the product families are really more like business verticals, should we say. But the idea here is to start to move to a place of autonomy where these areas and these verticals have got responsibility to make decisions and make decisions fast. We've also embedded some of the Agile 101, things like Scrum training and Kanban and so forth, and really embedding sort of clarity on accountabilities as well. So product is accountable for the what, engineering, the how, but also we've got internal and external customers. So product are working with those customers to understand, the what we really want to do. One of the key things we've done with Agile as well is we've tried to move away from Agile terminology, because people get a little bit evangelical about and purist about, is it Scrum, is it Kanban and so forth. And really what we care about is cross-functional teams delivering software well and really working and collaborating and moving at pace. And pace for us is shipping features every sort of up to like 5 days and stuff. So we have a lot of releases and things like we deliver all the time in our business. And to enable that speed, having great craft, so solid engineering practices, automating everything, strong pairing and collaboration through the teams to really get to what we would call a continuous delivery model. And in all of that, there's, I talked a bit about the customer as well. So, we make time to have a strong focus on the customer lens. So we do a lot of experimentation in transport. So we will experiment what we call A/B testing. So every feature we roll out, we take that data, but that allows us to pivot and adapt and get that insights from the customer and how our products and features are working. Our product owners and teams also go out and do something called dog fooding, which is going out to understand how the customers use our products. So failing fast, delivering value through insight is really, really important. The final sort of part of ways of working really is around that planning cycle. So we run on quarterly cadence, and we've done something called QPRs, which is our quarterly sort of product reviews. And we use OKRs. Now, OKRs are objectives, key and key results. And these are really focused on outcomes. And the outcomes are really guided by, what are we trying to achieve? They don't tell people how to do it, but the really important bit is around, what are we trying to achieve for the customer? And they are guarded by key results and so forth. But in our business, this whole sort of 3-month quarterly plan cycle is a good sort of operating cadence. And generally we try to stick at that because, it allows teams to really focus and deliver and achieve. But at the same time, we can also sort of do some flex within that. But, getting people to really own their outcomes and, what they're trying to do during that sort of planning cycle has been really, really important. So we've spent a lot of time tuning that quarterly planning cycle. And the last sort of pillar really is around systems and sort of capabilities. Going into the org design side of things, we spent a lot of time breaking up teams into sort of domain-based teams and using cloud and elastic infrastructure really to help with that agility of our business. So we can create the autonomy, because we want fast decision making, we want teams to own their thing, and ownership is really, really important. So, but the thing that we didn't do as much was around, at the beginning, was around working on creating more frictionless infrastructure. And we're doing a lot of work now in that space to allow that frictionless infrastructure to really enable the teams to go forward. So in summary, I mean, I've talked a lot about, different sort of factors and things of Agile, but, for me, agility isn't around chaos. It's very structured, which is contrary to what a lot of people will believe. People, collaboration, partnerships is super, super critical. Right? Understanding the outcomes you want to achieve is really, really key. And finally, delivering, working software to this sort of concept of a minimum viable product and then iterating on it, again, is really, really important. So now, hopefully that gives you all some insight in terms of some of the things that we've done in agility. And I'll be really happy now to pass back over to Harry to take some questions.
Thanks, Gavin. And we've got a lot of questions coming through already on that, because I think you've given some real top tips there, but people want to hear more. We've got one here from Peter Hall. He asked, how do you measure the margin gains / measuring the value of each of the changes made to these applications that you're working on? So really, I guess, a measurement question from him.
Yeah, sure. So we've got a number of different metrics in our business, right? One is we've got productivity metrics around things like cycle time and things. So cycle time is the time you from when you feature is definition ready to go into live, and so forth. So and coupled with quality. But then on top of that, we then have things like commercial metrics. So when the teams are looking at sort of features and experiments, and we actually look at the incremental gains we make on those things. So how many additional bookings do we make on those features, and we make decisions in that way. So our experimentation platform enables that. So I look at it in two lenses. One is the features we do, and we measure those things around ROI. Some of the stuff around system stability, we've got quality metrics, and then we've got some of the more macro metrics around sort of our productivity and even maturity in our business as well. So we use sort of engineering and service maturity models as well to give us a bit of insight in terms of other teams evolving over time. So, and the important thing about metrics is it's not a stick. It is insight that the teams use. It is not for, say, the chief technology officer to come and give people grief. It is really a good sort of insight.
Really know how they're doing. What about, we had another question around thinking about that in the teams, and you talked about trust a lot and developing them.
Yeah.
One of our listeners asked, do you have Agile coaches in the business? And if so, what value do you think they bring?
Yeah. So when we first started, we started off with delivery leads, then we went to Agile leads, and now we're on to Agile coaches. And I think a huge amount of value. Yeah. They, some of the things like people over process I talked before, I remember talking to our Agile lead coach, and she was talking to me a lot about, the benefits over physical boards versus virtual boards and different perspectives. And a lot of it isn't about telling the teams what to do, but it is about creating and fostering that culture in terms of, and getting people to work together as a team. So I think it's a difficult job, a coach, in many respects, because you're not telling anybody what to do, but at the same time, it's a key part to the culture of what we've done in our organization.
And we had a question from thinking about culture and thinking about teams and thinking about diverse teams as well, and how that changes business quite quickly. We had a question from Bipin Patel about how the culture that you've had within the business around agility, how that's kind of impacted diversity targets, and how you think that might impact, I guess, diversity in the future.
Yeah.
I think on the ethnic diversity side.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different challenges the technology industry has around diversity. I mean, it feels like it's a 25-year problem to solve in many respects. When I was at university, there was only 2 ladies on the course out of 180 people. But I think, what we've done in TBU, which is our business, is we've done a load of things around things like tech returners and working with the community. We find a lot of benefit with the things like the apprenticeship schemes of giving people different routes into the business. But then from a sort of, you know, diversity piece as well, the agility, I mean, working from home as well has now sort of changed a lot of things. You know, booking more broadly has a, you know, that culture around encouraging a strong level of diversity in the business. And, you know, some very simple things we've even done is, which isn't necessarily diversity, it's about hierarchy, is we've tried to take away some of the job title levels, so people have career levels on things, and we don't advertise those on people's job titles, you know, because graduates have an equal contribution to the team to, say, a more senior person in the team and stuff. So there's different things we've done. The coaches have helped with that. You know, we tried lots of different initiatives and things, and you know, we're seeing sort of a growth over time in getting managers and women in leadership and various different things. So I don't think agility is necessarily a key factor. I think the factor is the ingredients you play in your business into diversity and how you can play that into the long term.
Cool. Yeah, and I think an ongoing topic for the tech industry and something we should all keep talking about. A question here from Shankar, a bit more technical now. How did you build a continuous improvement strategy around your products to improve performance and sales? And how was your customer feedback incorporated into it? Because I know you talk quite a lot about the customer and your focus on the customer and how important that is.
Yeah, so I mean, there's probably two lenses to that. Right, so one from an engineering and a team perspective, I use what we call maturity models, which gives us, that covers sort of agile ways of working, engineering maturity and so forth. And that gives us a view over a 5-year plan in terms of where we want to be from a level 1 to a level 5 of maturity. But I don't really think that's probably where you really focus on the question. The question is more on the customer side of things. So what we do with the customer is that we do various different things, right? We have UX research labs, we have a focus on customer needs, but a lot of the things come in from our experimentation platform. We look at retention, we look at data, you know, the real sort of focus is those insights where people use features and functionality. I mean, the car hire industry is an industry where you see varying levels of trust with people, with things at the desk and things. And as a business, we've tried to look to work with suppliers and partners to reduce that friction, should we say. So our key thing really is using our experimentation platform to get data on what people use. Looking at our contact center, because we have a contact center, getting the feedback from those and the insights, and then also working with our suppliers on things like, things like suppliers, where they, we have supplier sort of scorecards and things which help us to work with suppliers in terms of getting them really engaged on how well they're doing with the customer and the feedback. And things like when you've rented a car, you get a welcome home survey and things. So we get those that sort of insight and so forth, and then we act on those things. Where we think it's the right decision to make for the business. Cool.
We've still got many questions coming through. I think people are really interested to get some of your thoughts on other areas. We have one question here from Alex, and he's asked about legacy organizations and how those who might not be used to working with Agile, i.e. perhaps at the BBC, adopt new ways of thinking. And I certainly I guess from my perspective in the past, talking to Agile coaches, some of them have said to me, the big obstacle is the finance department and annual budgeting, or it's the kind of legacy way of thinking. So what's your experience of dealing with that, and what would your advice be?
Yeah, so what we haven't done in transport is gone and spent, with an external partner, spent millions and millions of pounds of doing an agile evolution. What we've done is we've done this through our own sort of organic growth. But I think you have to invest in the people, and really it's about building the trust, the collaboration, the engagement. And I had some sort of metrics around productivity data, around sort of ways of just showing progress to say actually how we move forward as an organization in terms of our own sort of maturity. So The key things really is that, is that your budgeting planning cycle has to sort of evolve and mature over time. Some people like 3-year planning cycles, and I think it's just an educational about that sort of level of uncertainty. Because to be fair, if you're going to do a drop dead date in 3 years, it's probably total rubbish. To be fair, you're not going to hit it, because unless you put a lot of money around it. So it's about the relationships. It's about trying to surface. It's trying not to be. It's trying to be inclusive, and just taking them on the journey. And we have in our business a finance business partner embedded within engineering to understand the numbers. And, we have cloud costs and things, and stay on top of your numbers and don't have open goals and all those kind of things. So there isn't really a magic formula other than just building that strong relationship up with the finance teams, taking through the journey and not trying to do too much at once.
Yeah, not trying to shove everything through in one go. And Nikki, hopefully that answers your question about project management methodology as well. Do ping it through if you don't feel we've covered it. We've got another question here from Brian Herbert. He says, how do you encourage agile development to and teach it to concentrate on quality particularly?
Yes. So what I don't do is, we don't say to, well, first thing is, right, we've embedded testers. When I first started, there was about 3 testers in the organization, right? We have now a tester embedded in all of our teams. And testing, so quality start not at the testing cycle. Quality actually starts when the outcome is defined. So the requirement is part of the key quality criteria. I think most places, who are in that evolution probably don't always spot that at first, but is the requirement testable and all those kind of things. So I think embedding quality very early on is important. We also have things like release scores and things, so the actual team self-score how they do with releases. We have things like defect. I'm interested in defect age. I'm not overly concerned about how many defects we have. I'm interested in how long it takes us to fix them and the impact on the customer. So I think I think the traditional metrics on, we want bug-free code and all these, that's the wrong. The outcome is we want working software that works well for the customers, good experience. So looking at how you change the way you measure, you work with the teams to create the outcome is where I think we've done pretty well. And we track rollback scores on teams at the macro and productivity and data and things, and it isn't Big Brother. It's about just understanding how we can support the organization, and then embedding things like pairing, mobbing, testing culture in is super important.
Brian actually said many old school thinkers, in his view, said you need to have processes in order to get quality, and he doesn't quite agree with that. What do you have a view on kind of strict processes?
Well, I said before, people focus on people over process. I think ITIL, I see business trying to do ITIL isn't really compatible with Agile. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with governance, but I think the idea is that governance should be almost frictionless, should be seamless. It should just be part of where you work. And I mentioned earlier about us not investing enough tooling. So we have things like Service Directory, which is a technical thing in many respects, but we're looking at developer experience and tooling to improve those things, to take the friction away. So a lot of businesses will try to use just some of the Jira tools and things, but you also have to look at the dev experience. So, process doesn't help in, to keep you agility, but what it does do is it sometimes keeps you, keeps you compliant and things. So you've just got to find that sweet spot and do things like maybe value stream analysis, which looks at where's the value in your process and so forth, and optimizing. The coaches we have in our org help with that, the teams help in our org, and just trying to keep it lightweight and thin. And and your planning process doesn't necessarily always, your macro plan doesn't necessarily always connect down to what the teams do directly in terms of the process they follow. You can't have a big brother from top to bottom. It doesn't always work. You've got to give people freedom to deliver the software how they need to deliver it, and we just set guardrails around it rather than being very prescriptive on how people should work.
All that devolution you talked about at the start is critical. Empowering those teams to make those decisions. Otherwise, how can you move fast? To go up a long chain. Well, we're getting to the end of our time here, so thanks everyone who's listened. And Gavin, thank you very much for joining. I think we've had some really excellent questions and a really good discussion. This will be available on demand from tomorrow. What I would let you all know, to all our listeners, we will be pausing our DTX talks next month, and that's because we'll be hosting our much larger DTX Now virtual event, which will take place on the 29th of September to the 1st of October. So do keep your eyes out for that, to register for it. We've got a lot of great speakers, from the CIO of RSA Insurance through to the COO of the Samaritans. And we'll be touching this topic quite a lot more during those 3 days of discussion. So Gavin, thank you very much again for taking part. Everyone, thanks for listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the end of September. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.